Hi, thank you very much. I don't know.
You can go on your own. I've introduced everybody. But if you want to do a special welcome, you are very welcome to do so.
I don't have much to say. I'm Laura Iriarte. I'm head of PR and communications at 0100 Conferences. We connect LPs and GPs in venture capital and private equity. And I'm also the host of the Impact Talks, where I talk to investors on their approach to impact. And I'm very happy here. Please join me, guys, to the stage. You were already mentioned before. Fridtjof Berg, co-founder and chief business officer at Antler, Alejandro Rodriguez, co-founder and managing partner at IDC Ventures, and Emmanuel Leonardis, partner at Cathay Innovation. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone, for being here this afternoon. So I already introduced myself, and I think it's very important that you if you could introduce yourselves as well. We will be talking today about from seed to scale, VC strategies across regions and stages. The idea is to see the investor perspective in a very multi point of view, because as you're going to hear now from our speakers, what is the strategy? Please tell us a little bit about what is Cathay Innovation.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Glad to be here. So my name is Emmanuel Leonardis. I'm a partner at Cathay and in charge of what we call business development and ecosystem. So Cathay is basically a global multi-stage venture platform with presence in Europe, North America, Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And we invest globally. We launched last June our 1 billion fund, which is a vertical AI fund, probably the largest in Europe. And we invest in AI that is transforming different industries, including healthcare, energy, consumer, fintech, and healthcare. And we have we worked over time on a very solid platform approach where we basically connect founders to our global ecosystem of corporate and industrial LPs, providing them with global market access almost immediately. So that's it for Cathay.
Great. Great summary. What about you, Fridtjof?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a co-founder of Antler, and we're a global early-stage venture capital firm. Our strategy has been to be both in emerging ecosystems and developed ecosystems, backing founders really from the inception stage. So if you look at our footprint globally, we are in 27 cities across 22 countries. This ranges from emerging ecosystems like Ho Chi Minh City, Kuala Lumpur in Southeast Asia, to Nairobi, Lagos, a lot of places that are growing rapidly, but also established ecosystems, San Francisco, New York, Stockholm, etc. So it's really a play or a bet on talent coming from everywhere. I don't think that the big cities, San Francisco, obviously a frequently mentioned example, will go away from cutting-edge innovation. I think that's very true as I see what's coming out today. But also at the same time, there's many more cities producing unicorns. I think the number now is well over 300 cities have made a unicorn. And that number used to be 20, 30, a bit more than 10 years ago. So we're living in this truly global world, and backing people from an early stage has been really our thesis. We're managing 1.4 billion in AUM, back close to 500 new companies every year. And depending a bit on the region and the way you measure these things, I think we're one of the most active AI investors in the world in terms of deal count. Obviously, some much bigger rounds happening in other parts of the ecosystem, but in terms of volume of AI companies, we're arguably the most active, or one of the most active.
Wonderful, thank you. And what about you, Alejandro?
Well, thank you, Emmanuel, Fridtjof. Congratulations for the project. I have been lucky to be in 2019 one of the co-founders of IDC Ventures. We start first with a fund, really focused on the fintech marketplace space in that moment of time, thinking really in going to Series A, but at the time that we lead rounds and be in the boards, we become doing more follow-ons and leading some rounds in B and C. That makes us to get really good contacts across the board. Then some of our friends was launching new funds. Then we start to back some other funds, and suddenly we realized that we have a practice for a fund of funds that we officially launched 1 year ago. And at the time that we were investing also in fintechs, we realized that it's extremely relevant for all to be able to, for some kind of companies, have access to capital in other forms. Then 2 years ago, we launched our practice of venture debt. And finally, what happened is some of our LPs, because we are mainly based with private money, we have almost no public money, or nothing at all today. But our LPs were really worried about what is the idea of crypto, what was happening in crypto in 2021, 2022. And then we make some agreements with our LPs to co-create a management company of crypto. Then finally, after 6 years of hard work, we became with a platform, with a multi-assets, that is a toolbox for the founders that enable us to be something that we like to say, that is, we try to be the co-founders of capital for them.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for this brief introduction to all of you. But so the idea is to talk a bit about what is shaping venture capital, right? So if we go to something that you already mentioned, no? AI. How is AI shaping venture capital? From 2 ways. No? One way would be like the operational part, right? How are you as funds using venture capital to improve your operation, decision-making, deal flow, et cetera? And also, how are you investing? How do you choose what is good AI, the companies that are going to actually move the needle in the future? Maybe you can start because you mentioned AI first.
I'll start, and I think it's a very interesting question for our stage because we're really at its inception, and I think that it is mentioned a lot, but it also cannot be, I think, overstated how much it's changing the early stages of building a company. We have one of our portfolio companies, Lovable from Sweden. It got, in 8 months, 100 million in revenue. It's insane. It's like absurd, but it's a good example of the extremes of how quickly you can get to product market fit and get something tangible out in the market with a lot fewer resources than before. So what does this mean for the earliest part of investments? I think you need to act perhaps even faster than before. I think for later stage funds, it's probably very relevant to think about how do you maybe write smaller checks earlier just so you can get a seat at the table, because once the train is leaving the station, it's very hard to get in then, at least at somewhat reasonable valuations. So I look at this as a great thing for founders who are able to prove a lot with not too many resources, and that's very new. Now, to answer quickly on the Antler side or the investment side, from the very beginning, we've been very diligent in tracking, learning, and categorizing the data on early stage founders. So I do believe that we sit on arguably the biggest data set on early stage founders, and we're trying now to influence our decision making on, based on statistics, based on these millions of data points we have since 2018, can we complement our sort of human decision making by data? And one of my favorite quotes is Bloomberg said, in God we trust, everyone else brings data. And I think, or everyone else bring data. And I like it because it doesn't mean you need to replace, at least immediately, what you're doing, but you can complement that with more data points. So we're actually really trying to use our historical decision making in our future decision making because it's easier now than ever before to weave that into the investment committees in a fairly quick manner than before.
And in your case specifically, the earlier you invest, the more important it is, like, to meet the people. No, I mean, how much data can you actually get? No, I mean, I think in your stage, it's more about meeting the founder, having feeling, meeting. I mean, you invest in people more than in a company itself, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
if I'm wrong.
I can comment quickly on that. So I don't think the meeting people part goes away, but there's all kinds of tools now where you can even measure, if we're having a video conversation, you can measure the quality of the conversation from different AI tools. We're not letting this guide our decision making too much now, but it has real potential that you can compare that conversation we had to, let's say, 1,000 other conversations and figure out that based on the answers Laura gave, she's probably in the top 10%. It's an interesting data point that you, according to this model, depending on how much weight you give to that model, at least that's one data point that you're really outperforming a lot of the other founders we're talking to. So this is quicker and cheaper to play around with now than before. I wouldn't say that's automatically leading to investment decisions for us, but it's something we're testing a lot, and we're actually investing heavily in our tech team to increase confidence in using these extra parameters in our decision making.
Wonderful. Emanuele, you mentioned which stages did you invest in? Early? Please, I need your help here.
Yeah, we basically back founders early until pre-IPO. So I would say from seed series A until pre-IPO.
That's where I wanted to get. How do you see the use of AI in like later stages? No, I mean, what are the challenges? Because we already kind of understand the challenges earlier on the investment, but when it's about okay, pre-IPO, etc., how do you use it and how do you invest in this type of companies?
Well, the way we see things at Cathay is, I mean, AI is clearly redefining the venture model, right? So as my colleague was saying, in a few years' time, I think we will be able to talk about real-time venture because AI is basically compressing the timeline. So by the time you create companies, you do due diligence, you create market access. So all of that is going much quicker. So the real question is how we can leverage as a venture investors, how we can change ourselves from capital providers to actually leveraging AI and ecosystem to accelerate the value creation. And that's true for an early stage company, but it's also true for a late stage company. I think one point that I wanted to make, because AI is a broad topic, but very often the question is how can Europe compete globally, especially against the US when it comes to AI. And the view of Cathay is that while US basically they are dominating the foundational model in the computing infrastructure market, Europe still have a big advantage compared to the rest of the world, especially because we have a very specific domain expertise and also maybe easier access to industrial data, which is very important for applied AI. So how you build AI applications from the industry that are deeply rooted into the complexity of the real world. I think that's the point where Europe has a strong competitive advantage with respect to the rest of the world. Maybe quickly, I mean, talent as well is a key topic that always come into the discussion when we talk about AI. It's true that Europe is producing like a disproportionate amount of AI talents globally, and the problem is less how to produce these talents, but how to retain them in Europe and make sure that they don't relocate to US or they don't take a US capital.
And what do we do? No, because you're saying you have the great talent here in Europe. We have the capacity, we have the universities, but still we're losing against the US. So what should we do? No, and then we can touch a little bit about what we were talking earlier, maybe like the other part of the globe approach. But right now, like, how can we make sure that we can keep the talent? Because in the end, and we are not being able to grow here. And you invest in later stages. So what do you do, for example?
I think the way to retain talent in Europe, and we see a strong momentum actually for founders trying to build global companies and competing globally, especially on topics around manufacturing, healthcare, energy transition. They clearly need like a stronger funding ecosystem, so more capital in Europe, but also better connectivity. So how to, like Antler is doing, how to build this cross-border connectivity and networks that can help European founders compete globally against US competitors.
Like a regulation, like a unified regulation for everyone, you mean? No, so we can stop. Something that I was talking about last week in another panel is like, in Europe we tend to compare Germany with the US, right? When we should be comparing the whole Europe with the whole US, no? But we can't do that because every country has its own rules. And how can we actually solve that part? And it's unfortunately that cannot be solved in this panel, no? So maybe we can talk about your approach, Alejandro. You invest in Latin America, the rest of the world, multi-stage, multi-asset, multi-everything, right? So what's shaping, I mean, venture capital from your perspective, no? And why is it important to have this multi-asset offer or way of working, that you have at IDC?
Yeah, as I explained in the beginning, we create this bunch of tools because of necessity, not because it was a design that there was opportunity in the market. Then we came with the idea to be global, first of all, for an advantage for our funds, because without limitations of regions, we were able to detect some business models that works really well in US, that was already developed in Europe, but there was some opportunistic investment in Latin America that with the right people you can invest. For example, neobanks. No? Neobanks, long time ago, was something really famous in Europe that they replicated in US, but there was a lack in Latin America, that finally Nubank came as one of the big players. But we also get like the top 3, top 4 of these neobanks. Then was a really good advantage for us to be global and find the right strategy that we want to deploy. And we have done this with different other portfolio companies. For example, one of the investments that we did in the beginning was in relation with the food. And in the moment that we were trying to make the decision, we have one startup for Europe, one startup for Latam, one startup for US. All in the same stage, in front of our investment committee, and trying to say, okay, which one of these theses we are going to bet on. And the truth is that if you compare the other 2 models, they played really well, amazing numbers today. But the one that we choose, that was in that moment US, it's 100 times bigger than the rest. Then go to the next idea is, okay, how to use the toolkits that we develop. It's like now the companies are growing, they don't want to be diluted, but it's not only the ideas of the venture debt, it's also the revenue finance schemes. Then this is things that we are also working. Not in our house, but also there is other tools that with the right maturity of the market, when you are exposed to US, you are able to understand. For example, in US, it's a more liquid market. At the time that the companies go and close the growth phase, the requirement of amount of money is starting to be huge, like 200, 300. And in order to consolidate, you find that US is really fast on that. For example, last 2 months, my portfolio has been extremely active with the word of SPACs. SPACs are back. And that has been something really, I don't know how to say, not with a really good reputation for the past years, because some of them was a scam, but the SEC became and regulate the space, and now I am seeing the SPACs as a round that instead of having a liquidity preference, they create liquid. Then this global exposure is helping us to provide the best tools for each one of the startups.
Wonderful. And when we talk about growing, because we have been talking about, okay, AI is what's trendy right now. Well, what else is besides AI? Because AI has been also, we don't know what would be a good AI investment right now. AI as a solution enabler, AI, as you said before, are we going to be able to create the future ChatGPT here in Europe, or we're just gonna use AI, what we have already, to grow faster? And I don't know, who wants to say anything about it? Fritjof, please.
I'll mention a few. I don't want to take a lot of the industries, because I think there's a lot the 3 of us will mention. But I think on that question, one thing I think about quite a bit is just kind of the words we're using in conversations like this, because it's starting to become a bit like talking about internet companies in early 2000s. So an AI company can mean a lot of things. Is it AI enabled? Is it sort of using a bit of AI to make it look more exciting, or is it sort of AI native? And that's one thing I think people have to realize, that new startups now, if they're not leveraging AI, they're essentially not leveraging the best technologies. In terms of areas, I'll just mention one which I think is extremely relevant in Europe. That's obviously defense tech. And drones, you see them all in the newspapers. There's a lot happening. And it's, again, a good example of Europe's ability with NATO Innovation Fund, for example, where you can quickly kind of get together and at least try to do a lot more than what you did before, out of urgency, and it really is, a very important topic. But I think also it's not a topic where you could move this fast before the breakthroughs over the last couple of years. So maybe if you're asking me for one industry, I'll say defense tech, and yeah.
But do you invest in defense tech?
Yes, I think all across stages you need to invest. There's a lot of drone technology we have been investing in, for example. Battery storage for energy optimization if you're far away from the grid. So definitely,
but that's dual-use tech, no? In the end, that's dual-use tech, not necessarily defense, which is a problem now, no? Because everything can fall on defense, But in the end, all deep tech funds, everyone has been investing in dual use. What you're not investing in is like offensive technology, for example. Would you invest in that, which is part of defense tech?
So I think it's a definition question. I think most of these companies frame themselves as defense technologies, and I think most of them are. Yeah, that's at least the ones we backed, I think is very much with defense in mind, yeah.
And what about you? Do you invest in defense tech, or is out of your scope?
We invest in many things. Not just in AI. We also invest in biotech, energy transition, consumer brands. We do a bunch of stuff, robotics, humanoids. Defense is a bit of a sensitive topic, especially because, as you could understood, we have strong roots into Asia and China. And we really like to be, I would say, to stay away maybe from these topics that are a bit sovereign.
Yeah.
So defense is clearly a topic that I feel where we don't go.
Yeah, it could be controversial, right? Less controversial is to talk about dual use, because in the end, these are technologies that can be used for either of, or some people even talk about peace tech instead of defense tech. Not because in the end, what you want is to prevent this to happen, right? So when you have to prepare a company, thinking about the problem that we have here in Europe, now we cannot scale. Our talent leaves Europe and goes to the US. We don't have enough funds, enough money, enough funding to keep our big companies here. How would you prepare them? Now, especially in your case, you both invest in early stages as well. So how would you prepare them to actually be able to scale here in Europe?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, I guess the next challenge for European entrepreneurs is less capital and more connectivity, providing early exposure to global customers, provide market access, and also maybe international governance standards. So that's why cross-border capital it's very important. And the way we tackle it at Cathay is very simple. We have global funds and regional funds, but they're all integrated into a global, unique platform. So, for example, if you take a Spanish startup, they will be able to maybe use a Brazilian fintech and maybe leverage our partners in China in order to expand into the Asian market, and maybe work with the US corporate in supply chain. So for the way we see the playground is really global, and we try to provide connectivity through our global platform. And that's, I would say, it's actually the biggest challenge at the moment for European funders.
But are you being able to do that right now? Are you being able to leverage on that network and actually cross-collaborate that way within your corporates, your startups, and everything right now, with the current regulation and everything that we have right now? Is it possible?
Yeah, we really believe in collaboration between founders, corporates, and VCs, and work together in order to become global leaders, global category leaders, and also build transformative relationships for the different industries. Yes, it's not something that we do systematic, because not all the companies have the mandate to go global. Maybe some of them will stay local, but we have several examples where we take a French company or a US company or a Chinese company, and we help them expand globally and become global leaders.
Wonderful. And Fridtjof, in your case, you said 22 countries, right? And how many of them are in Europe?
Out of the offices, It's 8 offices in Europe.
8 offices.
Yeah.
And how do you think that these 8 offices in Europe can sort of somehow in the future work as like one hub?
Yes, I mean, in some ways they already are. We have an annual European Founder Conference where we bring the best companies. We bring them to events regardless of geography that they qualify for. And I think we leverage the US footprint as well. A bit like Emmanuel mentioned earlier, we also have a very kind of decentralized and global organization. And what I like about it, and it's really awesome for founders, it's, hey, if we back you early, we'll open up all of this network, we'll intro you to people in San Francisco or the right investor on your next round. It's a cool kind of value proposition to founders. And I think that as a VC now, it is important to also consider, everything is a sales process. Either they're selling to you why you should invest, or you sell to them why you get to invest. And I think typically the latter is the case with really exceptional people. So that's something we use quite consistently, and we have a lot of proof points of that now that we can really help a very early company go global. And that should obviously be in the founder's mindset as well.
Wonderful. We ran out of time, but before we go, I just wanted to ask you something. VC, I mean, there's this, I think that bell is ringing, but this is about what do you think is going to happen with venture capital in the next 10 years? I mean, right now we're seeing it's harder to fundraise. It's very hard to actually find the best opportunities because there's a lot out there. Very briefly, what do you see in 10 years for your fund, and your multiple funds or asset classes?
I think in a few years, the venture capital market will be completely different, very data-driven, as you were saying. Like AI will probably drive investment by itself. So VCs have to reinvent themselves and focus more on value creation. And I think it will be borderless. I mean, you're already in Nairobi, so I think the innovation will come from everywhere in the world. I mean, the capital should follow the talent, right? The talent is everywhere. The best ideas are everywhere. So Nairobi, Sao Paulo, maybe Valencia would be the capital of innovation in a few years' time.
As Endeavor calls it, the elsewhere, right? What about you, Fritjof?
I think VCs will have to go earlier, leverage data. I like what you said about borderless. I think also increasingly industry category less. So, sometimes people say, oh, that means industry agnostic. I think it means more you have some larger themes, but they can cut across industries and technologies a bit based on how founders are trying to solve the problem.
Wonderful. Alejandro, very briefly.
From my perspective, I believe that venture capital should be venture, that people that takes huge risks to make the world a better place. But on the other side, I believe that there is a lot of new tools that will make that the liquidity and transparency for the funds will come to the market, that will make that the fundraise will be easier, and going to the next stage of the companies will be better with all this revolution of the tokenization of security tokens. Then I believe that in the next 10 years, there will be a lot of startups being listed and generating a lot of value for Europe.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the audience for being here today, to VDS for the opportunity. And looking forward to seeing you around. And you can listen to the 0100 Impact Talks, which is my podcast, where I talk about these topics with other LPs and GPs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.